good evening. This is Maestro Catello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 2v2 on Calderis Refinery, starting a little late in the replay, so let's get going quickly right here. First off, we have Gote playing as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer, a spellcasting hero who mainly focuses on damage, manipulation, and disabling with his spells. His teammate is Fear, playing as the Grey Knight Bro Captain, a tanky melee hero in Terminator armor. He is the leader of the Grey Knights. He's got a big sword. You can get some better weapons later on. Their opponents, first of all, we got DJ Raffa playing as the Eldar Warlock. The Warlock, he's a bit shorter than the Sorcerer. I mean, he's just a space elf after all, while the Sorcerer is a Chaos Marine. The Warlock is a melee hero, but he also has a lot of spells of his own, as well as, yeah. And then finally, we got Commissar Sebastian Yarrick playing as the Commissar Lord. The Commissar Lord is a slightly tanky melee hero who walks around with an auto pistol and a sword. Can upgrade to get a power sword, a power claw, or a power fist. He can also buff his troops by shooting them in the head to make them fight harder. Alright, we got a very quick double Sentinel play from Commissar Yarrick, and I can only assume, well, definitely one of the good things about that is that it's generally a pretty good build against Grey Knights, particularly if they get a Purgation squad. Imperial Guard can struggle a bit against Purgation squads if they go for only a one Sentinel build, since most of the Imperial Guard squads are very vulnerable to the Purgation. Meanwhile, the Sentinel is very effective against the Purgation squad, while not being that vulnerable to it. So we could even say that the Sentinel kind of counters the Purgation, but the Sentinel is still relatively a low DPS unit, so it helps to have two of them that can be very oppressive to the Purgation squad. Meanwhile, over here, we got DJ Raffa delaying the aspects on his Dire Avengers and his Howling Banshees, making it so that he can get out that quick Guardian weapon team. And this overall right here is a bit of a losing battle, I think, for DJ Raffa, at least until he gets his Guardian weapon team right there. But other than that, it's his Dire Avengers and his Banshees getting forced off. He wanted his Banshees to finish off that power node, but he lost 3 models in the process. So he definitely took some losses in that process, although I guess it was roughly worth it for actually taking out the power node. We actually have a very, very quick Noise Marine purchase out of Gote. That's kind of surprising. It's not I feel like it's not terribly common with Chaos to only get 2 of the starting squads and then go into a power squad. I feel more often with Chaos you see either the 2 Heretics and the 1 Chaos Space Marine, or the 1 Heretic and the 2 Chaos Space Marines. Definitely not as common to only go 1 Heretic and 1 Chaos Space Marine as it is for, say, Space Marines or Eldar to go for only 2 of the starting squads and then go into a power unit. So, not terribly uncommon. Gote is a player he is a high-level player. He's a very good player, and he plays the Sorcerer, so I'm very interested to see what he's going to do here. Doesn't play all that much, though, so he's like kind of an enigma. He just like kind of shows up randomly, but he's very, very good. I guess he basically plays by invitation whenever he's invited to play by other high-level players who know that he's good and they want a good player to join in on their games. Very, very good, in fact. And I'm just interested to see what other ideas he has, because I feel like what we're going to see out of Gote definitely different from things that I do, and probably also a little different from, say, Noisy, Tex, or Chaos Librarian would do. So I'm just interested to see what he has. I mean, even right here, just we have, with the single Chaos Space Marine, the single Heretic into Noise Marines, that's already slightly different from what I would expect from many other Chaos Sorcerer players. Now, Fear has triple Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. He actually has the mines on one of them. Now, the triple Inquisitorial Stormtrooper purchase, that's definitely going to give Fear quite a bit of range firepower to start out. He also gets a lot of repair support when he needs to transition into vehicles, if he wants to do that, which he probably will. Both the Grey Knight Dreadnought as well as the Land Raider Crusader are pretty good choices for Grey Knights overall. And what we actually saw right there, the power of having these triple Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. They did so much focus fire to that Commissar on approach, and then he ended up just dying on retreat, taking a few melee hits maybe from the Bro Captain as well as the Strike Squad. But in fact, the build that Fear has definitely looks like it could be kind of annoying. We do have a lot of ranged firepower coming out of triple Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. They all have their Sergeant, giving them a further increase in firepower, making them a bit tougher, as well as allowing them to detect. At the moment, they don't need to detect, but it'll just be there if either Raffa or Yarrick actually do get some kind of infiltrated unit. Actually, I made a mistake. Raffa does have Rangers, so he can infiltrate his Rangers, and then we certainly have plenty of available detection, at least from Fear, although I believe Raffa is in a lane against Gote. This is incredibly risky by Yarrick. I think he might lose this Sentinel. He already lost one Sentinel, and this one, yeah, he's definitely going to lose it. Did not go far back enough. Looks like he was a little frustrated, probably intending to move it back farther than that. And he already lost 2 Sentinels, which is really, really going to hurt a lot. And I just realized that the Sorcerer got in here, put coruscating flames on himself, and he was doing a lot of area of effect damage to those guardsmen. So right now we do have a Sword of Flame and a Vestments of the Warp play with the Chaos Sorcerer. This is actually, I feel, somewhat old school. More often these days, you generally see a lot of Chaos Sorcerer players not getting the teleport armor, the Vestments of the Warp, that is, in favor of usually getting the Robes of Torment later on, usually because in some matchups it's almost a necessity, and even in matchups where it's not a necessity, it's generally the best armor warrior for the Sorcerer, the most useful. We have Noise Marines over here. It looks like full power farm has been destroyed already, and Gote will probably be able to get a bit more of a generator bash as well. He's going to get a decap off on Red Team's natural VP, and then he's going to bash power with both the combination of his Noise Marines as well as his Chaos Space Marines, or he might actually let the Noise Marines solo bash and maybe put the Chaos Space Marines in a position where they can stall, defend against the counterattack from Raffa. And that kind of looks like what he's doing, because even if the Chaos Space Marines aren't necessarily going to win against all these units, he might be able to distract them for a little while. That might allow him to get another power generator down, although at this point I think, yeah, Gote's probably done. If he stayed there much longer, he was most likely going to lose at least a model, if not more. It looks like on this side, maybe Yarrick somehow managed to get a generator bash off of his own, because we have only a power node here. I'm sure that wasn't just there by itself. But Gote actually going with a very, very light build, this is actually very, very different from what you see from players like Tex and Noisy, where they're generally going for longer builds. At least 4 squads, usually actually 5, and sometimes even 6. I myself rarely ever go for less than 4 squads, and very frequently go for 5. Even the composition of the squads that Gote is choosing together is also a little unusual, just getting the single Heretic, the single Chaos Space Marine, and the Noise Marine. Not getting a single Havoc, which is definitely very uncommon. You would generally see most other Sorcerer players almost always go for a Havoc in almost any matchup. I feel like the Bro Captain here might be overextending himself a little bit. He is pretty tough, but I think if the Warlock can get in another hit from the Warlock, will probably finish him off. He's not going to get it though, but we actually have the chasing from this Chimera might finish him off anyway, but he is getting some health regeneration, so he's actually just barely managing to get out of there. But we have Yarrick did not choose to replace any Sentinels, and instead he just made his first purchase in Tier 2, a Chimera. Must have gotten there pretty quickly. Right now his Chimera, oh god, his Chimera actually just took a shot from the Vindicare Assassin. I don't know what he's going to be able to do about that. He uses a Commissar Flare, but he also moves closer, actually takes out the Vindicare Assassin. So wow. But so Vindicare Assassin on the field and now already done. That being said, this Chimera is still in a little bit of trouble, being chased down by these Bloodletters. The Bloodletters could definitely finish off a Chimera with 56 hit points, but luckily it's just managing to drive out of there. Oh no, it hit a mine. It hit a Grey Knight mine, and that's actually really, really bad for it. Yeah, you should actually take the Guardsman out, repair. Alright, he actually just took the Guardsman out and shot at the Bloodletters, and that was enough to scare them off. I was going to say repair while also keep moving the Chimera back. Now, Gote is definitely playing with the Sorcerer pretty interestingly. He's actually doing it's a little bit more old school, a little bit more aggressive than a lot of the more defensive Sorcerer play that I think characterizes probably players like Chaos Librarian, myself, to be honest. We have a new Vindicator Assassin coming up. Maybe this one will have the that upgrade that gives him more health. I don't know if he already had it, but I mean the Vindicator is just pretty fragile. Although at the same time, we saw how powerful that Turbo Penetrator round was against the Chimera. 3 shots from that Vindicator Assassin looks like it will take out a Chimera, and it was actually quite miraculous for this Chimera to actually make it out alive. Right now we actually have the Chimera just sitting around not being repaired because the Guardsmen are capturing points. And that actually is something that can be slightly tough about Imperial Guard. Sometimes your main infantry units are your Guardsmen and you want to keep them near your vehicle so that they can support and repair. But that makes things a little bit tough when you need to capture points. Then you might be leaving your Chimera without repair support while you capture. It's also interesting to see the way Gote is actually managing to deal with Howling Banshees without even having Heretics on the field, and his Heretics, meanwhile, do not even have an aspiring champion. So he's in that particular situation, he actually relied on the Noise Marines using their cacophony, and then just the Banshees taking damage while they were being disrupted. Autarch call-in looks like it's going to miss just about everything. So a quick dodge from Gote, not getting hit at all by the grenades. This is actually going to be potentially bad for Gote because there we have an Ethereal Slash. Hits the Bloodletters, who have not yet lost a model, but I think they should phase into the warp so that they don't lose any models and then walk backwards. Yep, and they managed to do that without losing any models so far. I think they want to walk away from there, either into Heretic support, Heretic worship, or just get out of there and retreat before they lose any models. Yarrick, meanwhile, already going to Tier 3. So after having 2 Sentinels in Tier 1, only bought a Chimera and a heavy weapon team, which is actually a very cheap Tier 2, especially on power. He really did not spend a whole lot in Tier 2. Still spent around like 500 or so requisition, but very, very little power. Alright, now we have the Aspiring Champion on the Heretics. They Doom Blasted there to slow down the Banshees, and one of the major uses of Heretics are so critical for Doom Blast as a form of control. And that Doom Blast right there was able to control, basically suppress the Banshees, and that controlled the Sorcerer's retreat. Otherwise, that would have been a definite wipe on the Sorcerer. Meanwhile, over here, I missed it, but it looks like Commissar Yarrick got hit by a grenade barrage from the Inquisitorial Stormtroopers, followed up by a Hell Fury strike, and he lost an entire Guardsman squad. Guardsmen, of course, although there's certainly a lot of good things about Guardsmen, how cheaply they reinforce, the fact that they get plasma guns, and the way they're so core to Imperial Guard, being both a good ranged unit as well as their primary repair unit, that they're just very useful overall, but they're still so vulnerable to area of effect attacks. Alright, Raffa's saying that he's going for a double, but he's running into Gote over here. Gote teleporting in his Guardian weapon team, or teleporting his Bloodletters into the Guardian weapon team, and that was actually very nice. I don't know if Gote did that on reaction, but Raffa threw a grenade and Gote was worshipping, so he actually really managed to minimize the damage he took from that grenade, and that's actually something you can do. Heretics, I mean, I was just talking about how vulnerable Guardsmen are to area of effect attacks, and Heretics even more so. But one of the things you can do with Heretics to nullify that is, if they're about to get hit by an area of effect attack, you worship them. And that spreads them out, so most of the models don't get hit. They'll still definitely take some damage, but it can actually save the squad in some occasions. Right here, though, they need to actually unworship and get out of there to save the squad on that occasion. And Gote actually, meanwhile, does not have any real AV. He does not really have any AV, period. The closest thing he has to AV are his power melee Bloodletters. And then the closest thing after that would be his Zinchcast Space Marines, but none of these are sufficient enough to even take out a light vehicle, by themselves like the Chimera, unless the Chimera just sits there and takes it. But otherwise, the Gote doesn't really have enough to deal with the Chimera himself. And I mean, he's not in a lane against Raffa, so he doesn't necessarily need to. He has what he needs to deal with Raffa for the most part, who doesn't have a vehicle. And Fear, meanwhile, has the Vindicare Assassin. Fear lost something, and I'm not even sure what. He lost his Strike Squad. Wow, I missed him losing his Strike Squad. But he does have his Vindicare Assassin. Vindicare Assassin does have the extended operations. We've also been seeing him infiltrate, which I thought didn't really work, but he's infiltrated. This heavy weapon team now in a lot of trouble. It is not getting suppressed or knocked down, but it is getting wiped. And the heavy weapon team gets wiped for Yarrick. Yarrick taking a lot of losses in this game. And this Bro Captain getting so many special attacks. He has the Nemesis Force Sword, which is by far his weakest weapon in terms of the actual weapon part. However, it does improve his We Are the Hammer ability, which gives him a speed and a damage buff. So it's actually pretty commonly gotten these days, especially since it did get a damage buff. Originally, the damage was something like 30 DPS power melee. At 40, that's actually really not too bad at all, although it's still, certainly in terms of its actual performance as a weapon, it's definitely beaten out by pretty much any of the Bro Captain's other war gears. Meanwhile, we also have a Terminator Librarian. This guy needs to he needs to go home. Now we have an Invincible Warlock using Ethereal Slash, and he's actually attacking the Librarian. He might even take out the Librarian. This is a very close call. If he can finish off the Librarian, that would totally be worth it. If he could even use, like, Destructor, that might have taken out the Librarian, and he doesn't get it, and he's going to lose the Warlock in the process. That was a very, very close call. Fear, meanwhile, did lose one of his Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. So Raffa, that means Raffa, he had Providence. That's the ability that allows the war gear and the ability that allows the Warlock to turn invulnerable. It also reduces the cooldown times on his abilities and increases his energy regeneration. Potentially a very powerful war gear, but it is expensive, and it's a tier 3 war gear. Very good in combination with the Ethereal Slash ability from the Witchblade of Kurnos. Meanwhile, we have a Chaos Sorcerer in here. I would expect him to lose to an Autarch with an Energy Shield and an Executioner. And it looks like that's happening, although he did get one special attack that looked like it might have turned it in his favor. Gote nearly losing his Sorcerer. But when you actually have the Vestments of the Warp, you can actually save your Sorcerer in a lot of occasions where he would otherwise die. But infiltrated Vindicare Assassin right here. Right now, he does have Turbo Penetrator rounds loaded in. Looks like the Turbo Penetrator rounds still do damage to infantry, but it'll also do long-range damage as well as snare vehicles. And Yarrick is getting hit hard, but I think now it's Yarrick's turn to hit hard back with this Bane Blade. And I'm also just even more amazed by the stuff that Gote is doing, where he rode this 4-unit build all the way to tier 3. He's floating massively in tier 3. Well, maybe not massively, but he already has enough to get either a Great Unclean One or a Land Raider Phobos, and instead he's choosing to get something else. Must have put Terminators out on the field, and yeah, there are Terminators. And Terminators are immediately getting an autocannon. Meanwhile, we're going to have a Demolisher Cannon Strike. Takes a big chunk out of the Bro Captain's health. And we also have a Grey Knight Dreadnought approaching. This could be a suicide mission for the Grey Knight Dreadnought, and I don't know if it's worth it. We also have the Emperor's Wrath on the Commissar Lord. Where is the Commissar Lord? That basically turns your Commissar into a Manticore, and this might again be the end of the Terminator Librarian. But actually, I don't think it's going to be. Demolisher Cannon shot. Are we going to see a dodge from the... it looks like the Demolisher Cannon stopped short on the Grey Knight Dreadnought or something. And the Terminators are actually teleporting in and forcing melee. Which they actually will do a bit more damage, forcing melee. Is that going to be an Eldritch Storm? Or is that going to be a Singularity? Or is it just going to be a random marker for no reason? I don't know what that was all about. But the Grey Knight Dreadnought sacrificing itself, definitely going to die. Baneblade is now at only a third of its health, still taking force melee hits from the Terminators, who are themselves taking a lot of damage. We're going to have some support now from this Avatar. That's actually really bad news for the Terminators. because now this is definitely going to be a losing battle for the Terminators. The Baneblade is getting repairs, and that's also keeping it alive, so Terminators decide to just teleport out of there. Meanwhile, they actually use the Warp Global to teleport to the Sorcerer's location. They're still being chased down by Dire Avengers, but the Dire Avengers will not really be able to finish off the Chaos Terminators. The bigger concern are these Howling Banshees. Grenade actually does quite a bit, but I think the Justice Heretic... Ooh, I thought he was going to use Doom Blast, and now he should definitely Unworship and Doom Blast, because that's actually the only thing that's going to save the Terminators, and he might even be able to get a wipe on the Howling Banshees. Unfortunately for him, the Sorcerer did get a sync kill. Tried to chase even more, trying to also go for a Dark Flames on retreat, but I don't think that's going to be enough. Actually, mostly misses the Howling Banshee, does get the Dire Avengers, but they're still they actually have way too much health for that to really matter against them. And while I was watching that, it looks like a bunch of things happened over here, like a dead Baneblade. What happened? I don't even... Man, I missed a Baneblade dying. Meanwhile, Yarrick getting hit hard again, lost his Baneblade and the Chimera. Now he's down to 2 Guardsmen again. One of them is a level 4 Guardsman squad. That's the one that's been alive since probably the beginning of the game. The other one is pretty much a fresh Guardsman squad that only has the Sergeant purchased. And there's been a lot of squad kills in this game. Gote, meanwhile, haven't been paying attention, but he lost his Bloodletters as well as his Noise Marines. At least managed to keep his Terminators alive, but he has to reinforce 2 of those models. Alright. Banshees chasing Chaos Space Marines in retreat. Luckily, these Chaos Space Marines pretty much at full health, so they will be okay. Now, it's a VP lead for the red team, but right now the blue team is definitely looking stronger overall. So Gote has definitely played rather interestingly. He went very light on Tier 1 and Tier 2, and then he's actually really bringing out the big guns in Tier 3, which is, again, something that I feel is a bit different from, say, just Sorcerer play that I feel has been more common lately. Noisy's play going very heavy in Tier 1, trying to create an advantage, and then going heavy on Tier 2 as well to just like create an advantage and then just capitalize on that advantage. We now have the Commissar Lord upgraded with the Fist of Brachus. He has the None Shall Fall ability, making all of his squads... Actually making his squads invulnerable. They take damage, but their models will not be killed. Alright, Yarrick's prognosis of the situation is not positive. He's just lost so many things. He has a heavy weapon team now with a las cannon. We now also have some Seer Council out for, I was going to say for Gote. They've been subjugated by Gote, and now they're being put right next... They should not be put right next to the Vindicare Assassin, because they could actually wipe out the Vindicare Assassin. And they're actually just being attacked right here. Yeah, just swarm them a bit. He's not actually going to take out the Seer Council, although definitely came pretty close to it. Actually, wow, came very, very close to it. Down to one last member of that Seer Council. Avatar, meanwhile, walking forward, going to take on this Great Unclean One, and now we actually have Banshees that are being powered by the None Shall Fall ability. So right now, none of those Banshee models can die as long as they are in range of the Commissar Lord, but they got out of range of the Commissar Lord, and that's actually probably going to be it for the Banshees. There's just the Exarch left, although she actually has a lot of health left, so she actually managed just to stay alive. We got a Vomit from the Great Unclean One. Well, oh, one was a special attack. That was the Vomit. That was quite a bit better. And meanwhile, this is going to be an Eldritch Storm, and it's actually manages to miss all of the Grey Knight vehicles. And if anything, it's hitting the Avatar. Here we go with the las cannon taking a few shots at the Great Unclean One. The Avatar now in a huge amount of trouble, taking hits from the penetrator rounds of the Vindicator Assassin. Alright, blue team now with very, very few VPs. As much as Yarrick was saying that they are done for, they're very, very close in VPs, very nearly to winning it. Now we have this Grey Knight Dreadnought in trouble. Unfortunately, I think this big this big crane thing was blocking the line of sight for the heavy weapon team, so he may not have been able to finish off the Grey Knight Dreadnought for that reason. And then we have this Vindicator Assassin here, now at level 3 with only 518 health, which, if you think about it, is less health than pretty much definitely any actual hero has at level 1. Soon to be a triple cap for the blue team, and we actually have a third Grey Knight Dreadnought coming out from Fear. Fear, I wonder if Fear is, yeah, I was going to say, is he still in Tier 2? And in fact he is. So Chaos Sorcerer going for the cap, but gets knocked over by the Fire Prism. Was not able to finish it. And now we have this infiltrated Vindicator Assassin. I think the Vindicator Assassin is probably definitely going to get changed a bit in the next version. We even have some subjugated guardsmen. Subjugated guardsmen might even want to, well, they're just going to shoot, basically. And that particular subjugation did not actually do much. In general, subjugation is better used on melee units than on ranged units, since melee units, in general, have higher DPS than ranged units. So in general, subjugation is better used on melee units than on ranged units. And really, just in any situation where you can actually do a lot with the subjugation, because that particular subjugation actually did very little. In fact, I would almost say that that subjugation was not worth it. I mean, Gote didn't actually suffer for it, but he put his Sorcerer at risk for not a whole lot of reward. Gote moving in to try to take the red team and natural VP. The Fire Prism is going to disrupt his Sorcerer, but now he's moving forward. The Vindicator Assassin here as well, actually very nice play. And that was actually a concede from the red team, and that went in favor of Gote and Fear. So that was the game for them in their favor. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.